If you're watching this, you survived Thanksgiving. And Macon looks a lot different today.
Hey, guys.
Welcome to Greenlight. It is now Saturday morning, which means you've survived Thanksgiving, as we said. Full disclosure, we recorded this midweek because people have shit to do.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
A lot of family stuff.
Stuff, etc. Like, I'm dedicated to the pod game. I'm not that dedicated. I don't think my wife was going to sign up for me coming to the office on Thanksgiving.
I hate the traffic. You would think with a lot of the kids leaving that...
We do live in a college town. You thought the exodus would have, but it's been rough. Nate Collins, who is a friend of the program, has come back to join me today. We also have a special guest in the back room that we have secured in a giant cage, and we'll let him out of the cage in the second half of this pod. That is my brother Kyle Long, Pro Bowler, legend, my little big brother Kyle Long, who also was a teammate of Nate's as well. Yeah. So we've got a full show today. And again, for background's sake, we're actually recording this on Wednesday. We want to take the rest of the week off. By the time you hear it, it is Thanksgiving morning. I'll either be hungover and really happy, or hungover and it'll be the end of my world because Tech.
No. We're going to speak positive about it, and the streak ends. I don't even want to say what the streak is.
The streak is 15 straight times Virginia Tech has beaten our Virginia Cavaliers. And, of course, full disclosure, the background here is that Nate Collins, who grew up in upstate Connecticut.
Westchester, New York.
Is that a tough place?
Westchester, New York.
By the way, I did the
Don't be disrespectful.
Well, I had Nate on his
what up, PC 105.73.
Exactly, whatever that means. I had Nate on the visit. This is now how many years ago?
Oh, 05.
05. What do we do on the visit? Drank 40s and watched the Super Bowl? Was that Super Bowl Sunday? Was that weekend when the Steelers were playing the Seahawks?
Maybe. We played Madden.
I was pretty good.
Remember? Because
I used to be the Eagles.
Yes. And you know who else was there? Shout out to him. I don't know where he's at right now. Asa Chapman. I'll never forget.
He was a terrific player from Orange County, Virginia, not Orange County, California. Much different place. We had a nice visit. I introduced you to malt liquor. I'm not going to out you and say you had any in high school, but we had a lot of hurricanes. And that visit.
You want to hear the real story about that?
What?
I dipped for the first time on that trip.
I got you a pack of dip.
Yep. More peer pressure because Asa did it, and
Asa was a country dude.
And to me, you just recruit. We're all recruits. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? And everyone's impressed. Oh, look at him. He had threw a fat lip in. Everyone's playing. Yeah, just throw a lip in. So this is after chugging half of 40, put a lip in. Everything's cool. Everyone's playing Madden. And I remember just looking up, and the entire room starts spinning. And I immediately asked where the bathroom was, and I locked myself in the bathroom for the next probably 15 to 20 minutes.
That's not that long.
While I threw up. I was scared I was about to shit on myself.
This is a family podcast here. It's a family podcast. But you survived the trip, and you loved it so much that you committed to Virginia.
Can you believe that?
And we had a lot of good memories together at Virginia. None of them included beating Tech.
Yeah.
What's your worst loss to Tech?
It has to be the last one against Tyrod, because I just feel like it just excuse me.
He's getting choked up.
It felt so close, like that we were gonna beat them. Yeah, I know, right? That we were gonna beat them. I don't know. It's just a weird. It's a weird thing.
It's a mental thing. It was never mental for you or I, but I feel like the last 15 years there has been this growing mental edge.
Because we've had so many opportunities in games where you're
used to things going wrong. You could go to the game where in 08, my rookie year, I watched Vic Hall. We were down to our emergency quarterback. We damn near beat him in Blacksburg. Should have. there were games like last year that we lose 34-31 in overtime. My senior year, we lost 33-21 to them and had an opportunity to secure 10 wins and go to the ACC championship, which is historic for us. Now, we've got the same type of opportunity this Friday. Do you have a score prediction before? By the way, first things first, my man Nate here is the flag guy. How do you get that job, bro?
Ooh.
You're right. What are you doing Saturday, bro?
I am the flag bearer. And I think I'm just running out with the guys.
Oh, it's Friday. What are you doing Friday?
Friday. Oh yeah. So I believe no, this is the day after. So
yeah. So what did you do yesterday for the people listening?
I did an awesome job running out of the tunnel, leading the team. Hopefully not too close to Cabman because the horse kind of scares me.
Cabman has fallen before, and I know Cabman personally. He used to run horses on my farm. He fell and he almost impaled himself with that hopefully fake saber. Oh my god! But I was wondering, that's not the flag. For people watching on YouTube, he's got one of these car decal flags that you see Washington football.
I'm getting ready, like if you're running
Washington. Who's the Washington football team?
I
don't say the name.
Oh, so you want me to say it?
Well, no, I just maybe you don't have a thing about it.
The Skins.
Yeah, the Skins. Skins fans and Cowboys fans have more. This is a study. I haven't studied it, but this is my own observation. Is that Skins fans and Cowboys fans have more window decal flags than any franchises in pro sports.
100% up north.
And what cars do you usually see?
Suburbans.
Caprice Classic. Is it not? Is it not one of the...
See, Caprice, I guess that is true. Definitely Cowboys.
Cowboys.
Like
every car with a cowboy flag on the window that you have to roll up is to me is a white Caprice Classic.
Didn't you used to have a Caprice?
No, I had a 1983 Mercury Grand Marquis with suicide doors.
Okay.
Darrell Scott, you remember him? Clemson D tackle, came to St. Louis. So eventually sold that car to a DARE officer, but we were going around. I gave Darrell a ride to practice in camp one day, and it was a bit of a budget operation with that truck. I had a lot of money, but I didn't know it, so I was skimping on I was like, damn, I put like $3,000 into this old school here. First off, it's not an old school; it's a fucking sedan from the '80s. God. Secondly, the suicide doors would just open sometimes, and Darrell didn't have a seatbelt on. We're going around an on-ramp in Earth City, Missouri, and we're turning hard right. And as you can imagine, we're kind of leaning because this thing had a little lean to it, and the suicide doors whip open.
No way.
And Darrell at 40 miles an hour is hanging on to the seatbelt. So yeah, I didn't have a Caprice. I had a Grand Marquis, but that was sold to a DARE officer. I hope it's keeping kids off drugs.
I hope so too. Probably locked up a lot of people.
Actually,
you ever seen Bait Car?
No, I've never seen Bait Car.
Okay, never mind.
I think I get the concept though. Do you have a prediction that we can get made fun of or lauded for the listeners out there who are hearing it on Saturday? What happened in yesterday's game? What's your prediction as of right now, recording time on Wednesday?
Broncos gonna run it up. We're not only gonna beat them, we're gonna embarrass them. Like they're gonna be upset. Like we're gonna run the score up. Our backup quarterback's gonna get in. He's gonna do his thing. Like Bronco is gonna get an extension. He's gonna get anything he wants in Charlottesville.
Listen, he beats. I have a new house I'm supposed to move into here soon. The rumor has it. If they beat Tech, he can have a room in the new house.
Like you have to.
He can come in anytime he wants. You can have the code.
You have to.
And Bryce Perkins,
3 to the neck.
3 to the neck. If Bryce does this, he's my favorite UVA athlete of all time.
Yo, and I just
supplanting Anthony Poindexter,
Snowden, 14 Taylor, all these young. Yo, I just want them to eat. Like it's a weird feeling just seeing just being around town and seeing these kids and just really just want to transfer energy to them to be like, if you only knew how much some of the alumni we would just want you guys just to enjoy the feeling and not have the feeling that we all had for the last 15 years. Anyone you speak to, Biscuit is the only person I know.
Marcus Higgins, who's the wide receiver coach at Virginia.
Because you didn't beat them, did you?
No, I never beat them.
He's the only person I associate with that I can talk to that's beaten Tech.
Yeah.
And that is scary to think about from like the years of people, alumni and whatnot, and that's the closest that it gets
2003, do you know who won the NBA Finals? That's the last time we beat Tech. I'll tell you, it was the Spurs. They beat the fucking Nets.
I used to like J. Kidd.
You like Jason Kidd, so you watched the Nets a lot.
Yeah.
Well, that was cool of you.
Up north.
So my prediction is 33-28. We score a go-ahead touchdown in the final minutes. Instead of kicking a field goal after a long drive, we punch it in to win outright, and we win 33-28.
I'm thinking more along the lines of 42.
Man, if we score 42 points, we're winning this fucking game.
42,
That's
like 14. Like I'm thinking it's a big defensive day.
Well, good. So we're either going to be idiots or we'll be. I mean, like, we win. I don't care if the score is wrong. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care how this pod. If we win, hopefully you like the pod. If you don't, I'm predisposed celebrating. I want to get right into football today. We're going to have obviously a special guest joining us in a bit. I read a really interesting article this week on The Athletic, and not to plug The Athletic, but this is what I'll do. Since I stopped playing, I really enjoy reading about football, and they have a lot of good articles. It's faster than you can even catch up with how many articles they have. They have a number of podcasts. I'm not saying all of them are good, but this article, Defining Moments of the Decade by Lindsey Jones, I think she got a lot of it. I mean, a lot of these would have been exactly what I would have said. She goes through the decade. Obviously, it's coming to close soon, in a month or two here, and talks about the most impactful, could be domino effect or standalone instances in the NFL. And as somebody who played the entire decade, essentially, I remember where I was when a lot of these happened. I mean, I'll run down the list. She said the Calvin Johnson catch rule. That's kind of how it started. We all know, like, now the internet meme is Des caught it, but it was Calvin Johnson first, right? But it's always going to be something now. And I still don't think we know what a catch is.
No.
8 years later, which is crazy. But even if we did, I feel like it's always going to be something. It's DPI this year, of course, rightfully so. Fans are fed up with that shit already.
I am too. Like, that's hard. That's too hard to do, because what's next? Like, you're going to do that for, I don't know. Like,
well, if you're going to do it, just administer it consistently and administer it the way you said you would. I mean, we have seen countless instances where you'd think, even in the risky scenario, that a coach throws his flag because the overturn rate is so low.
Mm-hmm.
Even in that scenario, like, it's still ballsy to throw the flag at this point.
And I think that's the reason why they put it in there. It's for the viewers. Another thing, like, oh my God.
But do they think people are stupid?
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess they do.
Yeah.
Here's my thing with the officials, and we went through the replacement ref thing. You were in the league at that point yet?
Yep.
So we were both in the league when that happened. Officiating has been under more and more scrutiny lately, and I think that the problem that you have now, and it's not going away, is that the vantage point and the access that fans have and the vehicle with which we can discuss it in real time, the speed with which that's advancing is well outpacing the leagues catching up to it on an officiating level. So I don't know if there's a solution ever.
I feel like they try to do the best they can where they already have someone, like, in the booth. So when even something like controversial happens, it's like, oh, we're already in New York with so-and-so where they have 60 TVs looking at it, but we still
yeah. No, I know. Well, the problem is now is that fans literally have a better vantage point than officials on the field.
100%.
And I wonder if at some point officials on the field go away. I wonder if it becomes more of a thing where
robots, it's going to be just like they got mad about. It's just going to be, they're going to be on the field with an earpiece or like some type of like iWatch that's just feeding them what happened.
Yeah.
Like just
no,
like
I mean, I think
the baseball when they had the ump out there, but they did like a mock where they had a computer just calling the balls and strike.
Right.
And the ump is just there just to say it.
Right. I feel like you can get there with technology in football. I think there'll always be a game manager on the field that has to, signal certain things, personal fouls, that sort of thing. But I always thought, like, I know that footballs are expensive and this would be expensive technology. Why are we still eyeballing a goal line in a pile of people? Why isn't there a chip in the ball, that tells you that you're crossing a goal line or what yard line. I know,
Because
hey,
it's
shit.
those-
Nowadays, Bluetooth will give you fucking cancer. So like, I don't know
Because
about chips.
those same people we're talking about earlier, when you say if you think like they were stupid or not, if you do that and you just tell someone, oh, it's a touchdown because we're saying it in this computer.
Well, people are gonna think there's a fix in there. So I don't know what the solution is, but I kind of wonder at the end of the day if all press is good press.
Yeah.
What do people spend half their time talking about when you engage with the NFL on Twitter?
Mm-hmm.
It's complaining about the integrity of the game.
Yep.
Now, I don't know the NFL has survived, depending on how you look at it, Kaepernick or the owners blackballing him.
Mm-hmm.
They've survived the replacement refs. They've survived the pass interference rule. They survived, bro. The NFL is like cockroaches, bro.
Yeah.
The NFL is going to be like here after they're surviving. They've survived
They survived concussion.
the concussion thing. And
all of
people
it.
can talk about youth numbers are declining.
In the movie Concussion, they talk about it. Like,
haven't seen the movie. No interest.
Okay, don't. But you should. But they explain to it. They own like Sunday. They own the day of the
They
week.
own a day of the week.
With everyone is Sunday's like God's day.
Yes.
And they share.
They took God's day.
They share God's day. Like with everyone,
No,
and everyone's okay with it because it's like you go to church and then you watch football.
So is the NFL going to hell in the afterlife? Stealing God's day is not a light accusation. Let's move on to the CBA in 2011. And you came in the league in 12?
2010.
2010. Okay.
Yeah.
Golly, you're old. So you barely saw an old camp. You saw one old camp.
I saw one old camp.
So this was why the CBA
Albany,
was
New
such a
York.
big deal to everybody here was in 2011, the new CBA, the collective bargaining agreement that Lindsey Jones notes in this article was a big deal because it changed a lot of things for the NFL. But for players, one of the first things that was immediately satisfying, although there were a lot of gripes with the new deal, was training camp's going away as we know it. You used to be able to do two-a-days damn near as much as you wanted, right?
I think so.
Because I had 3 years of Spags training camps, two-a-day after two-a-day after two-a-day, and I think you had to maybe vary one special teams practice in there on one of the two-a-days. This isn't as bad as the 80s when my dad plays. It's 4 to 6 weeks of
So what it was,
two-a-days
you couldn't.
straight.
I don't think you can have two padded in one day.
So you had an uppers,
Yes.
which makes no difference. So
Not for O-line and D-line.
what we're talking
definitely
about
not.
here is that they litigated back in the day that you had to mix your padded practices, which are thigh pads, knee pads, which I don't give a fuck about. I never even played in a game with those. And of course you get fined not to wear them. And you'd wear your shoulder pads. That's a padded practice, obviously a helmet. A shells practice, as we called it, was helmet and shoulder pads. And for a D lineman, no difference. No difference.
Nothing.
In practice, the only thing you can't do in shells is tackle to the ground. And most places we're doing away with live contact drills every day.
Just look at Michael Bennett, what he wears.
Right. Michael Bennett barely wears anything. But so the coolest thing it did for us was all of a sudden you had one football practice a day and you had to have a break like every fourth day. Training camp was cake. And it still was. Even late in my career at 33, 34, I was like, if I was 33, 34, like a lot of these vets that I came in a locker room with, and I was doing these two-a-days on the road in a dorm room, I wouldn't even be playing anymore. So hats off to the guys who didn't see the new CBA.
Mm-hmm.
Football got a lot easier. Now, people talk about the linemen not getting as many reps, and there's people that say, oh, line play has declined, like hand fighting, that sort of thing. Like, I don't necessarily buy that. I think that's more of a product of college football.
Mm-hmm.
I think college football is the domino that has reduce the quality of line play on both sides of the ball because you're not developing players the same. Everybody's doing the spread shit. A lot of draft picks. Greg Robinson, I don't think when they drafted him out of Auburn, I think he was in a 2-point stance like all the time in St. Louis. So players are fresher is the flip side of the coin. I don't know how Lamar Jackson or some of these the game's gotten faster, undeniably. I don't know if all these fast guys are playing as fast and as explosive, which is good for the league, under the old CBA. So
No.
two sides to every coin. Change the rookie pay scale. That was another thing. So a dude like me who got broke off the bat, I did. Shout out to the Rams.
You were
old
second
CBA,
to last
second pick.
one. Second to last one to get that last deal.
Second pick
And then
in the
Sam.
second. Yep, and then Sam.
He was the last one.
So it's because of the Rams, and then the Rams ran me up after that. For the record, they paid me twice, and that's not a brag. I'm just telling you, the only big contract I didn't get just wasn't the rookie. Ow! I got the big one the second time.
That's a humble brag.
No, it's not a humble brag because a lot of people are listening to this and be like, "Oh, it must be nice to get rich off the
you
old."
worked for it.
No, but it must be nice to get rich off the old CBA when actually it was I got rich off the old CBA and then I went out and balled out. So
You can't control that.
you can't control that. So they changed the rookie pay scale. What happens there is it became a young man's league. When I came in the league, vets got more expensive. Rookies got less expensive in this new deal. And when I came in the league before the new CBA, I had 4 guys who were 33 in my D-line room. By the time I left St. Louis my 8th year, I had the closest parking spot to the door. So that meant I was the oldest guy at 30 years old.
Yeah, because you guys kept getting the first.
Yeah, exactly. Because we couldn't fucking win.
The first pick of the draft.
But it's harder for older players to stay in the league now, and I found that out at the end of my career when. So I had job opportunities and shit.
You think it's harder
for older players to stay in the league?
I don't know. It depends.
Because they don't want to keep you there. One, new coaches are afraid of the old NFL. They're afraid of players like vets that are a little bit ornery, vets that actually have some, you can't get rid of me. It's not like you have tenure, but you're paying me. They don't want to pay guys, and they want the young guys. You can control the young guys. You can build your team that way. And it is largely a good model in building your team is build it through the draft. You got a guy like Lamar Jackson. You don't have to worry about paying him for a little bit now.
Yeah,
you can continue to build around him.
3 more years.
Speaking of quarterbacks, Tebow Mania was on the list. Tebow Mania for me it was interesting because the whole time you're like, this experiment is totally fucked up. This guy's not a quarterback. We're watching it. I'm pulling for him because I love chaos, and this was chaos.
That was chaos. It's still one of my biggest things. I tell people I don't understand like how organizations, coaches, people like how they don't take a chance like on him. He's a winner. Like I don't care what anyone says, he's a winner. There's so many organizations with quarterbacks who haven't made it to a playoff game, let alone won a playoff game. I don't care how he did it. He ran the whole time. It doesn't matter.
He shot-putted a ball to Demaryius Thomas. And
80 yards.
Listen, one of those things that in sports, and this should not be in there weighted for actual importance, but you know how there's some games you remember where you were? I was in New Orleans with A.J. Feely and Tom Sandy. We were at the Sugar Bowl on a guy's trip having a great time. And, of course, this is a level of hanging out I can't do anymore from liver and
definitely can't.
all that stuff. But I'm waking up from one of those naps where you wake up and it's nighttime, and I turn the TV on. I'm trying to get back on the horse. Like I got a hangover / we've been day drinking / that whole deal. I turn on the TV. First play I see, swear to you, Demaryius Thomas for the touchdoon against, I think it was the Steelers, right?
I'm not sure.
It was Broncos Steelers.
Yeah.
So as you look at all that, you're like, what the fuck just happened? And it's relevant now because he prefigures Cap as a nationally divisive figure because as people talk about Cap, they're always calling back to Tebow. And it's true. I mean, if Tebow continued to get jobs after that, Cap should have a job now. We all agree on that. But another thing that people have used it for is when everybody questioned Lamar playing quarterback, who was clearly, although you had some legitimate questions about how he might transition to the pros. You have it with every quarterback.
Yeah.
But people were making it a thing like they justified working him out as a wide receiver because they did it to Tebow. That's a disingenuous argument, is all I'm saying.
No, I think at the end of the day, it's all media. They did that because they knew, hey, if we do it, someone's going to be mad. Like, best case scenario, he goes out there and he's just a guy that like, you know what, I'll do your stupid workout, and he does amazing, and everyone's like, yo, he can be a wide receiver.
Right.
Like, or worst case scenario is like everyone's like, yo, you guys are idiots.
This is why they pay you the big bucks, though, the conspiracy theory stuff.
I mean, that's how I see it.
There were enough people, and now I do think there's a misconception with Lamar is that in a room full of 100 people, if 15 people say he needs to try out a wide receiver, Lamar fans, myself included, are going to continue to go at these detractors even years down the line. The biggest being...
But I can say this. I feel like the biggest factor in all this is that he landed in a system where the coaches and everyone around him said, like, we're going to build off of him.
And they did.
And that's the biggest thing, because I can see him being in a different system and then everyone being like, hey, maybe he shouldn't be
I agree.
quarterback.
And that's what people don't understand. I talked about it with Carson this week. We did a long thing on quarterbacks the last show. I'm not going to rehash the entire thing, but scheme and context and situation matters. And this isn't to take anything away with Lamar, and this is how quarterbacks are now like politics. It's divisive. Lamar is a stud. We've never seen anything like it in the NFL.
Nope.
But you can't deny that he's better off with Gregg Roman than he would be without him. Gregg Roman has pulled the best out of 4 different quarterbacks now. Of course, Lamar, he didn't have a large sample size before for people to be like, hey, you know, there was some regression before Roman came to the rescue like he did with Alex. Cap never took a snap before Gregg Roman, and he brought the best out in Tyrod Taylor. Gregg Roman is a wizard. Lamar is an alien. So it's totally unfair, and I don't think anybody catches up by Super Bowl Sunday. By the way, I think they win it all. I mean, it's not a hot take at this point.
It's not a hot take, but excuse me. Like I thought earlier, I had said to you, I think Billy let them get that game a few weeks back.
I don't believe that.
That's just me.
You're going to need – okay, so
that's just me.
Here's the point.
That's just me.
If Bill Belichick – the conspiracy theory, Nate – if Bill Belichick thought enough of the Ravens to throw that game because he knew he'd see them again, they're worried about it, then you would also know that you're going to be in the running for home field advantage, and you beating the Ravens is totally dependent upon being at home in Foxborough. I'm just saying.
They don't care about being home. Baltimore and Foxborough, same weather.
Oh, is it?
Basically, bro.
I'm just telling you, bro. I was up there for a year.
I know. My sister lives out there.
Oh, well, see, I was going to say I had to practice and play on that. And also, I know the way they think. They think that weather is their...
It's more schemes, though, with Belichick. Belichick's going to... It's about having his guys in the right spot. Yeah. Belichick's not going to... He's not going to lose without putting his players in the right spot. Well, and that's the hardest thing to do with Lamar because he's just that extra guy that you never...
There's always an extra guy in the run game with him. And then another thing is, and this is why I think that the problems New England have against Lamar are issues that are fundamental.
Yep.
The thing that they create so many problems for other teams up front with is the size and range of their backers. But if you pick backers who are 250, 260, and these guys are big fucking guys, you can't do the run lateral thing with Lamar.
You can,
but
can't. Not the entire game.
You can't. So here's what happens. I'm telling you, they move them sideways. Guys get tentative. It's like it happens with anybody else, but it's an especially bad matchup with the Patriots relative to who other teams they play. They get guys, these big backers moving sideways, and then you take away their biggest strength, which is their ability to come downhill with no conscience. And it's not like New England is great as far as pass rush is concerned. I know they have the sack numbers, but those are manufactured. Yeah. So one thing you can do with them is you man up, right, and you bring pressure. What's the one thing you don't want to do? Man up against Lamar Jackson. Turn your back. When we were rushers and you play somebody athletic, they always told you, what'd they tell you? When we're in man, fucking pay attention to your rush lanes.
Yep.
So
because if he gets out, it's like, and
it's
I mean,
6.
You're gonna have to and that's what I think Belichick is good at with the defense. He's gonna have to do like the muddle rush, and it's gonna be guys not really looking for sacks.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we're gonna make them seem like we're coming after him, and we're just gonna have him. And you say, hey, if they're gonna beat us, it's gonna be because our cornerbacks or their wide receivers are making amazing catches every single play. And if we lose that way, then it is what it is.
And listen, Lamar threw 5 touchdowns the other night. I think a lot of people have a misconception that, he's
amazing.
And listen, the thing about the other night was 6 touchdowns on 6 first possessions. That's the first time since it happened to the Saints in 08. And it felt like 10, 12 possessions because they were all just like 7 yards, 8 yards, 12 yards. There was no 60-yard play that I remember.
Do you remember in your box when we thought that we were going to beat him at UVA in that last drive?
Oh, yeah.
We were about to jump to rush the field.
Yeah.
And we were like, it was that close. And I watched him do that last 90-something drive, 80 yards. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, this kid is going to be amazing.
At whatever he does.
At whatever.
Yeah.
Because that's the funny thing.
Because somebody's going to build around him.
Here's the funny thing. I think he probably is top 5 receivers if he's a receiver.
Just because he can doesn't mean he has to.
No.
That's the biggest thing.
And that's the funny thing, too. Like, I can't wait until the offensive coordinators, when they do put RG3 in there and they do that triple option, and then they do something where they throw him a pass when he's going to burn a top receiver, and it's just going to be like, hey, everyone.
That's going to be a very viral moment.
I can do this also.
Lindsay also talked about Peyton, and of course we're talking about, for those of you listening, the biggest moments of the decade. This is an Athletic article by Lindsay Jones. Terrific piece. Agree with most of it, but we just wanted to continue to riff on some of the things she brought up, and we'll add our own at the end. Peyton free agency in 2012, $96 million he makes on the market with Denver. And this is right after he got cut in Indianapolis, of course. He's got 2 Super Bowl appearances after he ends up in Denver, obviously getting shellacked against my division rival.
In New York.
Yeah, in New York. Bad deal.
Shout out to Pot Roast.
Shout out to Pot Roast, Terrence Knighton, who's a great coach now, former teammate of both of us. They only had 1 win out of those 2 Super Bowls. They beat the Panthers, as everybody remembers, in 2015. He visited the Cards, the Niners, and the Titans. I don't know if this lines up. I'd have to go back and look, but I believe this is right before the Super Bowl run that was half Alex Smith, half Cap. Of course, yeah. So I wonder, butterfly effect-wise, because I'm into that, if he ends up in San Francisco, what does today look like? Because maybe Cap never happens. It's kind of crazy to think about. Also, I
played in that game, Cap's coming out party. Bears versus San Francisco.
Are you sure you played him in the coming out party? Because I'll do you one better.
The Sunday night game, Alex Smith had got the concussion.
Who did he get a concussion against?
I forget.
The Rams.
Oh, the Rams.
I was right there.
Oh, yeah.
So they played us and then you the next week.
And then they played him, and that's when Alex Smith and the Smith, they had 5 sacks.
Yeah, Smith brothers.
They beat
legends. I remember that was one of the tough because man, he was running through that right tackle Karimi like a knife through hot butter.
No, there was a dude, Kyle knows his name. One of our old linemen, he got beat so bad, like they took him off the depth chart, they put him under the depth chart. He retired. He called himself retiring.
Was it Alden
the next
or
day.
Justin?
They both had like a combined 7 sacks.
No, it was one of the most.
It was Justin. It was
one of the most amazing, and Justin probably made a lot of people quit. Kudos to that guy for actually fucking quitting and not quitting internally.
No. But he tried to come and sit in the meeting room in the locker room like a day later, like after they.
I decided that I'm not going to retire, or just to hang out.
I'm not really retired. Like he came back in.
When I retired, my dad explained to me that once you cross the Rubicon, you can't come back. And that's not necessarily true, but it's certainly true for that guy. If he doesn't leave Indy, though, and of course we're talking about Peyton getting cut by Indy, and he had a neck injury, and there was a money issue. There's good reason to get rid of him, but if he doesn't leave, I think if he stays in Indy, I don't think he wins the Super Bowl. That Denver team was perfect for him to orchestrate that year with the defense they had, him being more of a game manager. I guess you wonder if Brady has one more if he stays in Indy, because Brady lost to Denver, I think, twice in that span that he was in Denver. And, of course, there's the Cap effect that if maybe he ends up in San Francisco, maybe Cap doesn't happen. But most importantly, here's the deal. Andrew Luck retired earlier this year in August. I don't think Andrew Luck career is ever derailed by injuries if Grigson doesn't wreck it. So if he stays in Indy, they don't go 2-14. They don't have a shot or a need to draft Andrew Luck in 2013. That was, of course, the RG3 draft. I think what happens is that Grigson never gets an opportunity to just murder this guy's career with bad protection and personnel around him and no plan. And I think imagine Andrew Luck in Washington with a left tackle like Trent.
Why would you do that to Washington fans?
With a running back like Alfred Morris and a coach like Shanahan, who, of course, infamously didn't take great care of RG3, but you wouldn't have had Andrew running the option in Washington.
Or maybe it'd be the same thing.
But I doubt it. I think Indy was deservedly getting a lot of flack for the better part of a decade for not building enough. You talk about building around Lamar. They didn't even try to build around Andrew and Indy. So 2012, we got the Bountygate punishments. Another thing I know a lot about.
Oh, you were
because Gregg Williams is my guy.
Did you win any money for bounties?
No, I never did a bounty, and we never had any bounties. But we had the 1-year suspension for, I think, Loomis, Peyton, Gregg Williams, Joe Vitt, Vilma, which is overturned. Greg came to St. Louis at the time with the Jeff Fisher hire. And had to miss his first year. Blake Williams took over for him. And we actually played pretty well on defense. That was a damn good defense we had there.
Yeah, I was getting extra money for hits.
Whatever,
bro.
Motherfucker. I didn't need any extra money back then. These are my double-digit years.
You were the only one.
Yeah, no. We had Quinn. We had William Hayes. We had Brockers. We had eventually Aaron Donald.
Doesn't matter. That's
Nick Fairley.
Look. let's keep it real. Bountygate is for special teams. If you want to get special teams guys riled up for some extra
That's
bread,
a great point.
Like,
maybe that's why I never heard it. But to Gregg's credit, I thought a lot of that stuff was, listen, Gregg's whole thing was live on the edge, play on the edge, never hurt the team. Does that sound like a guy who wants to get the team caught up in the Bountygate thing?
I can see you.
It changes the way that we've talked about football, though. The way it was acceptable to talk about, I'm going to knock that motherfucker out, cut the head off the snake, the body will die. You can't say things like that anymore because of Bountygate, right or wrong. Another thing was New Orleans had more bad luck over this decade than any team in the NFL, right?
I think I can agree with that. I still can't believe like how the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean,
the
NFC
Championship. And what happened to them a year before? Minnesota Miracle.
That's bad tackling. That's not bad luck.
It's also
I
just
know.
like you've just for everybody the guy that ducked his head and thought he was breaking up. I mean, that was in and of itself a whole different thing. But I think what happened with Bountygate is actually in the end, it accelerated Sean Payton taking ownership of institutional control in New Orleans. You had the prescription drug thing. You had Bountygate. You also had bad coordinators for a little bit. You had Rob Ryan, who struggled down there. You had Spags, who really struggled down there. It seems like now in 2019, if you look back then, bad defenses, bad institutional control, you'd never imagine that at this point they're one of the most balanced, disciplined teams in football with a good defense. So Sean Payton, not just a great play caller, he's grown into being at least one of the best coaches in the league. Hernandez murder, 2013. That's taken a dark turn there.
I talk about this with everyone that like it's a scary thing, like that. For people who don't know about being in the locker room and being next to someone, I always say like I wonder who was sitting to the left and right.
You
of
don't
him.
know
the left and the right of him, because from when the timeline of some of these murders happened, it's like this happened and like in a day or two later, he's back to normal in the locker room.
Doing normal things.
Like doing normal things.
Like hanging out with, hanging out with coaches' kids and like
doing normal
smiling,
things, whatever
joking.
it is. You have teammates, sons, kids, like locker rooms. Hey, this like.
Just forget it. You and me, like, bro, like, there's a difference between being a tough guy that plays in the NFL and not being moved by murder and violence. And this is something that, for me, I think people talk about that sort of things. We see it in movies. We hear it in music. But to think you're sitting at work with somebody who's taken a couple lives, and somebody that you're in the huddle with, you don't know who you're.
But I think mentally for me, it's just like a crazier thing that depending on his demeanor and like how he is, like nothing to give off like, hey, there's something up with this guy.
So there were two things from what I heard. There are people that knew him from Florida were not surprised.
Oh yeah.
Because there was an entire history that has of course come out here. And then there were people on the team that were oblivious because it was like this, there's a lot of people that.
But it's just like work. I try to like make people get it like easier to understand it. It's just that like if you
know everybody at work,
if you work in an office building, you might know someone, your best office friend, you might know them there, but it's something where when you go home or they go home, you don't depending on how close you are, you don't really know what.
And guess what? In an NFL locker room, there's a huge range of people with family backgrounds, people with kids, people without kids. You're working like 12 hours a day. So the last thing you want to do, it's not like college where we used to go back to, the Fred or the Meat Mansion and hang out and drink 40s. Like I got a wife, I got kids. I'm not going to be hanging out with the young single guys and vice versa. It just goes to show you, I think people are shocked. They're like, how do you not know that about somebody? You just don't. Think about the dirty secrets people keep. You think they're going to be broadcasting the fact that they have a couple bodies? Like, no. So another thing that bothered me about that was the whole, and I know we've talked about this before, but, terrible situation. And the first thing that's terrible for is the victims' families. So, I mean, to even sit here and muse about Aaron Hernandez, it's borderline to me if I even want to talk about him, but there is the issue of him being incarcerated, ending his life, and the CTE thing, which he had more tau protein than anybody, or the most CTE out of anybody that they've ever
seen
that they ever encountered.
Yeah, so far.
Guess who else probably has some tau protein in their head? Me, you,
Definitely.
my dad,
Definitely.
played 13 years, old CBA. Countless people, I believe, are walking around with CTE, and it doesn't manifest. So don't blame every time somebody has like erratic behavior, or God forbid, there's domestic violence or murder, or a guy goes broke after football. This is a cross-section of society. Just because you're good at football doesn't mean there's zero chance you could be a bad person. Or, just because you're good at football doesn't mean that you don't suffer from some sort of mental health condition that has nothing to do with football. You could have these factors that exist, but personality doesn't necessarily, actions don't necessarily manifest because of the fact that you ran into people for a living. God willing, we're both going to be normal for a long time. We agree CTE is bad. It's prevalent. Sure. Football's not good for you. But what we can't start doing is, because you cut Aaron Hernandez open and he had more CTE than anybody.
I definitely don't think that's the reason why, like, they're pushing and saying that. I don't know. Like, I just feel like I definitely think that for the longer that it's going to be that
we'll be the last generation not to know what we're getting ourselves into.
And that's the biggest thing. Like, until we know more about it, and I'm like, just with the conspiracies, I don't believe that the only time you can tell or we can figure this out is when we die. Right. I just feel like that's very convenient.
I think it's probably possible, but I do believe that. Why would the NFL not want this to go away? Or do you worry that I'm saying,
I don't think there's a way for it to go away. And I think
you think it would be heightened if you can actually test it in real time and people will realize that.
Bro, like, who wouldn't want to, like, who in the right mind, if you're making money and you know this is an issue?
I don't know if I'd want to know that I have CT. Once
absolutely
I'm done,
would.
I wouldn't, because what's going to change now, unless there's a way that you can reverse, and I do believe within the next generation we're going to have that way.
Because if you do start having complications, like, there'll be more stuff set up.
There's more lawsuits and litigation, but to me, I mean, like, I don't believe that the NFL holds the cards in. I mean, there's an entire medical community that has no stake in the NFL that wants to cure this. So I don't think the NFL can stop the scientific community from curing this.
No.
I think scientific community would love to get this cured and addressed. My whole thing is, in a soundbite, because if you're listening to this and you weren't listening 30 seconds ago, CTE is bad. It exists. Tau protein is probably building in my brain. It's probably built up. I hit people with the crown of my helmet for a long time. There's DBs who
Tau Protein Tuesdays.
Tau Protein Tuesday.
AKA Two-Spot Tuesday.
We used to run into each other. That was a drill. Just run into each other. Listen, this stuff is bad for you. The NFL needs to continue to try to make the game safer. But what I don't like is when all of a sudden these Twitter doctors start, assigning diagnoses to guys that are falling on hard times or have an underlying mental health condition that would happen if they were a truck driver or a janitor. Like, schizophrenia doesn't present itself until you're 30, or in that range. Like, so a guy has schizophrenia and starts acting batshit crazy. It's almost like now we've got to start asking everybody who acts crazy in society, hey, did you play in the NFL by chance?
Hey, if you play,
because you must have CTE, right? Because that's how they're assigning behavioral outcomes within football. You might hear this rant and you might say, well, Chris definitely has CTE the way he's talking about this, because it is so obvious to me that anytime anybody does something bad that played in the NFL, it has to be the head trauma. Do you know what the murder rate? Do you know what the murder rate is in America?
It's high.
It's really fucking high.
I think a lot of.
Do you know what Aaron Hernandez did?
Yeah.
Murdered some people.
Yeah.
So how do you make the leap other than, like, we cut them open and they're CTE? Well, guess who else you cut open?
It's just convenient, bro.
But guess who else you cut open? 100+ dudes, and they all had CTE. How many of them had a murder on their resume?
We don't know. They might have got away.
So that's my point. It's just like, let's just realize that we don't quite get it. On to the next topic.
Yeah, we definitely don't get it. We
don't get it yet. We know it's bad. We don't get it yet. Next topic that Lindsay wrote about that I wanted to riff on was, concussion settlement, 2013, $765 million paid out to 4,500 players, but not a win for the players. It was the league. For a league that takes home annual revenue in the billions, it's not an admission of guilt, and it was a remarkable.
Are they still nonprofit? NFL?
I think so. I don't know.
I think so. It's crazy. Yeah.
Remarkable limiting of liability for sure. And in 2016, they they didn't apologize. They acknowledged that there is a link between TBI, traumatic brain injury, and football. You think? I think we have, to my point earlier.
I think that's the biggest thing. I think the fact that like it's more just like you were talking earlier. Do they think that we're dumb? Talking like, I guess
That's the problem.
That's the problem for like being a player, being a past player. It's just like, guys, like listen, like everything's not caused by CTE, but at the same token, knowing what's going on, how some of us get hit, and how some of these guys are getting their bell rung, and they're not okay, like in the moment for a few weeks, like cut it out and like let's do more to push to make it seem like you guys are actually trying to figure it out. But at the same thing, I empathize and understand from a business standpoint. It's like, hey, what if we dig deeper and we do know? Because I feel like at one point there was a scare where I guess a lot of soccer moms in the U.S. were like, hey, we're not letting our kids play football.
Oh, well, youth football is on the decline, and it should be. I'm not going to let my son play football until high school.
And I think that's the scary part. But is hearing that.
I have no issue with the gripe with the NFL. The NFL is not to be trusted, especially on this one. But I have a gripe with people just thinking they understand something 100% and they don't quite. And let's just stop acting like we can just, from our cell phones, diagnose something that's going on because of a behavioral thing that could possibly be TBI and how it's manifested and a guy acting erratically.
PTSD.
Or it could be PTSD. It could be
a number.
The same irresponsible people who are mad at the NFL because they're corrupt. Guess what? We know the NFL is corrupt. And these same people are all about banging the drum about mental health awareness in America and, redefining masculinity and being more open about what's going on with ourselves mentally, are the ones banging the drum for that guy has CTE. I saw he robbed a gas station. He's got to have CTE. Like nobody else has ever robbed a gas station before, or there's no domestic violence outside the NFL, right? I mean, we'll get to all that in a bit, but yeah, like the way we treat women in the United States is not a problem. It only exists in football, and it's got to be because these guys get run into and they're just violent by nature, but we've overcorrected, and that's my problem. So, listen, when I was in the middle of my career and this whole thing started coming out, the lawsuit, etc. I'm somebody who has anxiety, anyways. Like on a serious note. So shout out to Brandon Brooks. I think he's got it more serious. He had to miss a game because of it this Sunday, but I have just baseline some anxiety. I have, and it manifests in different ways. And when I was in the middle of my career, and that CTE shit started coming out, I was more anxious because I started to wonder if I had CTE. And no, what you got is anxiety, bud.
Well, who's to say that it's not as bad or it's not the same thing?
Well, then why has it improved since I started to make changes in my life that had nothing to do with football?
And maybe it's the fact that like once you realize, but I think that's the hardest thing for anyone. Like is just to realize, hey, like maybe it's not this. Like maybe I'm. But that's the
problem we got to be careful with. Is it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy for guys that we totally discount the existential crisis that guys have when they leave the game.
But what I can say that other people can't say, I know for us, we have good family and friends like circle around us where
some guys have nothing,
and that just thinking about not having anything or not having people around you, that thought, for whatever reason, I never had a reason to feel like that, but I used to, and that would give me anxiety. So the thought of knowing like, hey, like some guys really just going home to maybe they have a pet or maybe whatever,
that's terrifying.
It's terrifying. So that's why I say like I can empathize in a sense that you don't know what's going on with guys. Someone.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got guys that, and I didn't even get to this earlier. Existential crisis of you're a god for 10 years or 11 years, or even if you played 3-4 years, like you are the rarest of the rare athlete in the biggest gladiator sport on the planet that's played on a big stage. Like this is an alpha male sport, and you are exalted for playing it. And even if you're not an ego guy, like it's intoxicating. So when you walk away, you better walk away correct, and you better walk away with a value system that includes a family or a home base. I've been very lucky, man, and you're lucky as well. But like you said, some guys, they're doing bad financially. They don't have a wife, a girlfriend, kids, a home, friends. Like people distance themselves from the places they came up from naturally because you're sequestered in some new city. You're making a bunch of money. your relationships are strained because you
lot.
have money.
It's a lot.
It's a lot for normal people have no idea. And just like we have no
None.
idea what it's like to live check to check or work a 9 to 5, they have no idea the pressure that comes with the NFL and then the cliff you fall off when you leave. And this fall, I've been pleasantly surprised with how much I love my life, but I think a lot of it has to do with how I left. I retired. Nobody cut me. I knew I could get another job. I'm healthy. I got my money.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, but like, guys leave and
No, for sure.
was it hard after you left for a little bit?
100%. It's like, you got to think about it. Like, dude, like whenever you don't leave on your own terms, like injury, whatever it is, this is what, like for most guys, like when you're a kid or whatever, you want to make it to the pros. You want to do that. You want to do this. So I feel like it all depends on, for you, if you've had a goal or what you want to accomplish. If you haven't really quite made it, I feel like that can affect you. But at the same token, it's
I think it's also how much you tie your identity to it. So for some guys like me, I never tied my identity completely to football, and part of that might have helped because my dad was so fucking good. My brother's really good. I'm not going to be
and
like,
you cherish it. Like, the biggest thing for me is, of course, like I feel like I left like too early, my injuries, but the time I was there, I know, like when I was on the field, practice, whatever,
fun.
It was fun. I played, I worked hard, played hard,
Yeah.
and like I feel like I still have good memories. So I feel like if you're not doing that, and maybe that's something, but at the same token, if you're really not on your game for a long time in the NFL, you're not going to be on a team.
I think it's really hard to leave the game. It's hard if you have animosity. It's hard if you're in a tough situation. It's hard if you've tied your ego completely to the game. And you throw in the mental health side that has to do with CT. It is a big, complicated bag of shit.
You just got to realize early that it's a business.
Yeah.
Like, forget your childhood.
Nobody likes you. Nobody really likes you.
I try to tell everyone now, they're like, yo, like, playing in the NFL ruined the NFL for me. Like, it's hard to watch the same way. It's hard to, like, appreciate things the same way because you see stuff happen. Even if they don't directly happen to you, like your teammates, guys, and you see how like everything is really all about the bottom line.
Yeah, it's hard to be a fan because you've seen what's behind the curtain.
It's hard.
You've seen the sausage get made, as they say. So let's go to the next thing, and we got to rapid fire through these so we can let the T-Rex out of the cage back there.
You like chorizo?
And Kyle. We've got Kyle Long coming up. Deflategate in 2015. 45-7 win over the Colts. The Colts, are complaining about the balls. Tom Brady obviously has been taking the air out of the balls allegedly. I believe he did, but I don't think it's a big deal. And here's why it's not a big deal.
Because Belichick, find a way to win.
Well,
like, I just feel like if other coaches knew or other people in their head thought like, hey, like, yo, if we deflate these balls a little bit, like when it's colder, it's going to be easier for our guys to catch it. Everyone does it.
Well, I agree with that. Other people deflate it, but on record, I've heard of Aaron Rodgers liking to inflate his ball. So it's just a point of preference. I know it's better in cold weather, but Aaron plays in cold. Why does he inflate it? They were better in the second half with the regulation balls. They beat one of the best defenses of all time with the regulation balls. It was more about Spygate to me. It was more about Spygate to me. It was more about, hey, this has already happened. I thought Spygate was more egregious. This wasn't much. It was more about the cover up than the actual crime.
I feel like it's more that like no one really knew about that rule or like that was like an issue. Like,
I don't know.
unless you're a ball like the equipment guy like that knows like all the metrics of stuff. Like, how do you know that?
Yeah.
Like and
there's the Brady cell phone thing after and the nickname thing. So I do think the cover up was worse than the crime. Luck's retirement. Now this is an interesting one, and this coincides with the point we made earlier about Peyton Manning killed Andrew Luck's career and also gave birth to it by leaving because he made him a viable option in Indy, and Grigson and company just rode him into the ground. He retired in August at 29 years old. Lacerated kidney, torn labrum, calf, ankle, all that stuff. We all know about the injuries. And that's pretty run-of-the-mill for the NFL. It's a lot for a quarterback. But the pressure, the treatment, every year you're going out there and you're a franchise quarterback who can't control your health.
And no one wants to be in a training room when everyone's practicing.
It's miserable. It's the worst place in the world.
And depending on if you have females in there or not saying that matters, but just being around testosterone and dudes sometime when you're hurt, you're miserable, like, and you're doing rehab and stuff, it's just like, ugh.
Yeah, you don't want to do it.
It's a lot.
You don't want to do it.
And I feel like when he got hurt that last time and in their head, they were like, yeah, this is going to be another 3 to 4 months. Like, I think him thinking about that is like, I'm done.
He also knew that, had he gotten hurt and stayed in, all the same people that called him a coward for retiring would have been called him like Mr. Glass for playing another year and being hurt. So it makes no sense. But he joins the ranks of like Calvin Johnson, Patrick Willis, who retired at 30, Chris Borland, who was a baller, played 1 year in San Francisco. The guy was a fucking stud.
Yeah.
Before any of these guys, though, there was Jim Brown, who left to do Hollywood movies. And also there was the domestic violence stuff coming out. And I think he kind of skated before that stuff could bust wide open. Barry Sanders was obviously, the best running back of all time, in my opinion, left the game early. What this is a bigger issue of players taking back their autonomy a little bit and being more in tune with the mental health stuff, with the we own our bodies thing. And yeah, I mean, we get paid a lot for sure. But this is a struggle that players have in being in our league more than any, that we can take ownership of ourselves. This is not a players' league yet. And these guys making decisions like this, they're not only doing the right thing for them and their heart, but they're doing the right thing for future generations because we have some leverage now. Malcolm Butler was one. Now, those are all Lindsay's, biggest things of the decade. Of course, she wrote that article in The Athletics. Great article. Check it out. Malcolm Butler added in. She added as an extra. Malcolm Butler, I think his pick in the Super Bowl, if that doesn't happen, New England is going from 2005 to possibly 2017, and there's no guarantee you get there without a Super Bowl.
But, for that, I thought you were talking
the
about...
benching?
Yeah.
That was ugly. So that's another thing is, like, in New England, you can go from the most important play in the history. I think it's one of the most...
Tom Brady gave him his MVP car.
Here's the reason it's the most important play. Because 2005 was their last win. They had gone the entire decade almost. They come up with the win. If they don't, you wonder how the Pats come back from that. Losing 3 Super Bowls. You're entering a territory where...
The Bills never came back from it.
Well, the Bills never came back from it. Of course, they didn't have the Super Bowls before that fall. But even a Tom Brady and a Bill Belichick, it's hard to keep people together. When you talk to Rob Ninkovich when I was there, he said the hardest thing in the world is losing a Super Bowl. You'd rather not even be there. If they lose that one, adding to all those failures, I don't know if they ever get back there. I'm just not sure. Legion of Boom, that kind of gave the Russell Wilson detractors fuel. It probably accelerated the time bomb that was that locker room offensively and defensively. And, the LOB was going to break up eventually, but it certainly didn't help. But one thing that whole thing, Belichick didn't call a timeout. They get down there. He's like, fuck it, Seattle, you figure out what you want to run. I know what we want to run, and I know exactly what's going to happen, and so do my players. And that's pretty damn cool.
And that's why I say you can't underestimate Belichick.
You can't. But I think Lamar's different. Here's an underrated one, Fox. And my dad works at Fox. But Fox, and this is a bigger broadcasting at large thing. I mean, like, it's no secret that it's a Netflix world now.
No. Netflix is about to die.
Well, whatever the fuck. You're on the trends more than I am. But,
so Disney has their own platform now.
Well, okay, so it's a Disney world, let's call it.
Yeah.
Disney Plus.
Yes.
I can't wait to get that shit.
Bro, like
all the cartoons from when I was a kid?
Yeah, that's why Netflix is about to die.
Man, I'm
Marvel,
on it. Okay,
everything.
So let's say Disney Plus world, it's a Netflix world. But Fox, they bet big on something that was unorthodox. I'll explain why. The big money right now is still in ads and broadcasting, but viewership is declining. And one place that broadcast is doing well still is live events like the NFL. So when Fox bought Thursday Night Football and they bet on these live events and they said, we're going to strip down all our stuff that's not live, that was a winning move because they've been able to stay in the game. And even with Rupert Murdoch's giant presence and Fox's giant presence, they weren't ready to keep up with, the Disney Pluses of the world. I mean, that's a model. They just couldn't. So as you look at how we're going to be consuming football in the next, think about all the things that happened probably in the last decade. I mean, now you can watch, and Sunday Ticket's been around for a while. I don't know when Red Zone came along, but people are watching football on their phones. I'm on, I think it's the first streaming pregame show ever on Amazon with Kay Adams and James Coe. The game is changing.
Humble brag.
Yeah, well, the game is changing. We've dropped that nice Dipset ad lib there.
Yeah. Hey.
Jewels.
Shout out to him. Free Jewels.
Shout out to Dipset. Is he actually?
Yeah, he's in jail.
Jesus. Cold weather Super Bowl. That's another one for me. NFL experimenting, sending that Super Bowl up to New York. They did Dallas, and there was that big storm. That was a shit show. It's just because Dallas doesn't know how to handle cold weather, but evidently they get it all the time. They missed that 5-inch snowstorm by a day when it came to that Super Bowl up at the Meadowlands. There's not going to be another one back there.
Never. That was so great.
And that stadium's it's sterile. It's got a sterile vibe to it.
What you mean? That's a good stadium.
There's no atmosphere. That's my thing. There's
no
atmosphere in that stadium. It was 49 degrees. The next day it snowed 5 inches. I think Peyton still would have struggled in an indoor game against that team. Washington is maybe the next. I could see if Washington down the line gets a new stadium at some point. I could see a DC Super Bowl being pretty cool, although good luck with the fucking roads there.
No.
Talking about outdoor cold weather stadiums, though, I mean, that would be up there in the list. Like, where could you see an outdoor stadium that's a colder climate getting a Super Bowl? Chicago, it's too cold.
I mean, it would have to be Baltimore if Lamar keep doing what he's doing.
I don't want to see a Super Bowl outside. I don't
want
to see another. Well, I'm telling you, I don't want to see a Super Bowl outside on turf. I want to see it on grass. I'd like to see it in Washington's new stadium, whatever that is. Green Bay would be an interesting one, but you can't support it up there. It's too cold. And as Kyle joked, like, where you can stay at the Paper Valley Sheridan, like, there's nothing there. Appleton's it. But they did get something right with the drafts. Nashville was a huge one, a monster weekend for that city. 600,000 visitors drove to that place. 133 million in direct spending. They did 74 million in Dallas, 56 million in Philly, 43 in Chicago. This is something that the NFL can get greedy. This is something I think they do well. The draft is going to change all the time now. I loved Radio City.
Shout out to you. We went to yours.
Yeah, you went to my draft. You were part of the group that hung a banner that said what?
I forget.
It was something about my penis, and that wasn't cool. You almost got kicked out of. You guys are on the second.
So
it was the white guy humor. It wasn't the black dudes in the group. It was the white guy humor.
So literally, like, I was so passed out. I was so passed out.
Oh, you missed the draft almost?
You were number 2, bro. So when we heard your name, we were asleep. I didn't even hear BA's name, which was about 11 picks later. And I just remember just being like knocked out. Just waiting.
Well, the dudes had a damn giant sign that had some long play on words that was phallic in nature, and I think it was the white guys,
Santee and Big Country.
Yeah, so those guys acting like children. You guys also almost set a hotel on fire.
Yeah, good times. We're not gonna talk about that.
No, we're not. And that wasn't you. It was somebody else in the group.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. My Philly draft story is it was right after I signed with Philly. They're gonna have the draft. I think this is the weekend. And I go to Germany to get stem cell, and I'm really excited about signing with Philly. Probably not going to draft anybody. It's you and Brandon Graham. Great. This is awesome. Man, I woke up at 3 a.m, Germany time, till like my phone just off the hook, like, sorry, bro. They drafted Derek Barnett. Woke me up. I couldn't sleep. I was like, fuck this. I literally hate football. Turns out me and Derek turned out to be great friends, and it all worked out. We all rushed together.
You see what type of anxiety football gives you?
It does.
Like the weird thing that no one really...
Yeah, nobody thinks about it.
Like, why would he care about that?
I care about that.
But why would everyone text you sorry, too?
Yeah,
it's just like, why would you do that?
Yeah, well, they also know. I mean, your true friends know what time it is, and it was a miracle. I think when they drafted Derek...
Do they, though?
Listen, here's what happened. Eagles get a lot of credit for bringing me and other vets in, and maybe they should. But they didn't fucking think I was going to be any good. They really didn't. I called the Eagles. They didn't think much of me in the beginning. They picked Barnett. Probably would have done it either way. And I think Derek is a really good player, and I love Derek. He's one of my buddies, and we ended up making some plays together. But I think that was like, hey, well, we got this old guy that's more of a locker room guy. And that's how my career ended there, too. So
you got a ring, bro.
I did get a ring. Best thing ever.
So for them, it did work.
Yes. Tepper as an owner, that's a big one. David Tepper, I believe is his name, in Carolina. He's got more money than, I don't know about God, but anybody. He's got a lot of money.
I don't know a lot about him.
And the league wants more people like him. It creates competition off the field.
Like more than the other owners?
He's got a lot of money.
Okay.
And what he's doing is he's bringing fresh blood in this ownership group. He's also been on what seems like the right side of some of the social justice stuff, but the real reason it's a big deal is because there's no salary cap on stadiums or coaches. You know, the NFL wants more owners like this who are not, the Browns or the Adams in Cleveland and Tennessee, respectively, these family-owned groups that are kind of been there a while that might be comfortable. Like these new guys are going to push for the latest, the greatest, and the best, and it creates like this arms race. It's almost like a recruiting thing. Teams like Green Bay, they have to get kind of creative in the way they do things, obviously. But a lot of teams are going to rely on these new owners to kind of push the next generation of their football operations to the next level. And you want all the nicest stuff. What was the nicest organization you played for as far as taking care of the players?
Had to be the Giants.
Good food, good facilities.
I got there right when it was new. The Timex, like it was unbelievable. It was like a 5-star restaurant. I used to get to breakfast early, so I didn't have to wait behind any vets and get a dope ass omelet. But just everything in there is just. You kind of walked around with your asshole tight, like you don't want to piss anyone off in there because everyone seemed like they were like all business. But at the same token, everything around you was like, yo, this is nice.
Yeah,
like this is really, really nice.
New England was really nice for me. I mean, their facility is state of the art. I wasn't a fan of the fact they had no windows in the facility, but as far as like, shout out to Ted, the nutritionist, stuff like that. Their entire staff was really committed to providing everything for the players. Philly, my last year, they kicked it up a notch with the food, really nice facility, but New England's was very state-of-the-art. Two owners that really care about football in Lurie and Kraft. But with New England, they've been at it for longer, new plane and stuff. I missed the plane, but, they just, everything was kind of, no expense spared. And they do the same thing with Philly, but it was just New England had a lot to work with up there. London, that's the last thing. This decade, when we look back, if there's ever a team in London, I don't think it would be advisable. I don't think it would be a good idea. Even if the hub is in Atlanta or Jacksonville or somewhere in the Midwest, they talk about doing these. If a team moves, you do a longer homestand at home. You go over abroad for a month. I think Canada or Mexico would be better.
They used to do that with the Bills.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's cool, but like I just don't know how that really works.
It doesn't.
Like,
it doesn't work. You won't get any players.
I kind of get it. Like, I mean, I don't know how it, like, just being over here. Like, I don't know in London, like, I guess, like, when we play, like, it maybe it's that much more amplified and it equals out. But, like, even business-wise for me, I'm just like, obviously, it's something that they keep punching at it to try to get it to work.
They're punching at it for two reasons. One, they have this, they're hell-bent on getting a team over there. You heard the...
Don't guys always get in trouble and get sent home?
In London?
Yeah.
There's some stuff you can get in trouble on over there, but I'm always so tired from the time change.
That's what
it's not healthy. Here's the thing: football's not healthy, anyways. Your adrenaline's on the entire time. I can't tell you how chill I feel just from being under no stress. Imagine throwing in that every month you have to adjust to. It's hard enough for businessmen who go over and sit in meetings. Like then you got to go be violent and pay attention and be mentally on your game.
My entire time playing football, if I ever woke up and the sun was out, I was late to something.
Yeah.
And having that feeling
panic
is like panic. It's crazy to think about.
Now I wake up and I'm like, shit, I can't get my son to school, but like we can fix that. Preschool, it's not such a big deal. Okay, so I think in summation, the NFL is not just doing it to fulfill this pipe dream, which I don't think is going to happen, nor would it work, of moving a team over there, but they're also growing a fan base, which I get that. And it is fun to go over there and play. One of my favorite games of my career was going over to beat the Jags. I played well in that game. It was one of my last games. And the feeling of getting back to one of those cool old hotels and hanging out with your parents and just everybody who made the trip over there after a win, it's hard to beat. But after a loss, it is awful. I've also been on that side of it. Ironically, they're huge.
Gator Bowl.
They're ironically huge Jacksonville Jaguar fans. We lost the Gator Bowl to Graham Harrell
in Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium.
Yep. So full circle here. Jags are the favorite team in the UK, which is hilarious to me. By virtue of the fact that they're the only team that was willing to they don't care enough about Jacksonville as a league. They're just going to dump this team over on the UK, and the UK is eating it up. They love the fucking Jags, man.
Don't talk about my old team.
Okay, so let's take a quick break. Let's let the giant T-Rex out of his cage, my little big brother Kyle Long. But we're not going to do it on this YouTube, you got to click one more time to get to the second half of this Thanksgiving extravaganza for your Saturday morning. Hopefully you're bloated and full of turkey and you can keep watching. So stick around, click one more, and go to part 2.